have folks who don't understand recycling because where they come from, that doesn't exist. So we have the whole communication issue, translating all of our flyers and things in Spanish and Creole and English, and then getting the neighborhoods involved in training their neighbor who is of a different culture. And we're getting some really good success levels on that. And it makes you feel good when you have someone who understands it and they say, hey, I reached out to my neighbor and I got the flyer and I was explaining, and at first we weren't speaking the same language, and then by the time they got done, this family that had just moved in that was of a different culture was like all excited because now they were going to start doing it correctly. So I don't think it's because a lot of people don't want to. I think it's because some people don't understand. But I think for me, as this is my second year coming and speaking, you look at all of the people in this room and on this stage, they are all committed to making recycling successful. And Professor Welt came to Monroe County about 3.5 years ago, and they wanted to talk about the plasma gasification. And they said, we think that Monroe County would be a great place. Monroe County is a great place, but we're too small. We don't have the feedstock, we don't have the space. So I guess as we all sit in this room and we start talking about our challenges and our thoughts and what the future looks like, and we've got lithium batteries, and for me a big issue is solar panels and household hazardous waste and all the oils and gasolines that come in from the waters. We're going to have to look outside the box and look at some of the new technologies that people are pouring their heart and soul in. Monroe County is very limited as to what we can do, but I can definitely tell you that we are committed to helping the other 6 counties up here succeeding and doing what they need us to help them do. One thing that I've recently done is, like Rebecca said, I've recently hired a recycling coordinator and outreach individual, Melanie Tuschel, and she's here, she's doing some networking, she's got some great ideas. And one thing that I'm gonna share this, I don't want to steal your thunder, but we have a lot of derelict lobster traps. I mean, we have cleanups constantly in Monroe County from interest groups. And so Melody has reached out and she is refurbishing these lobster traps. Okay, so we all the time talk about reducing and reusing. So what she's done is she's taken these lobster traps and she's put them together and she's made what you might want to call a portable bookcase. She's also working with the libraries. Libraries now, we all know that books are going away, right? People are they're downloading books, they're going to the library and listening to books.
The next librarian, not entirely.
Yeah, and so, but books are cool, right? And so some of these books are being discarded. So she's going through and she's getting these books of interest. You might call them coffee table books. I think that's what she calls them. And she's putting them in areas like the jury room at the courthouse, where you all go for jury duty and you sit there and there's no magazines, you can't have your phones, you just sit there and look at each other. They have agreed to allow her to put coffee table books in there. So she has these portable bookcases at some of these places. She's reusing the books that would have been thrown away, and she's reusing the derelict lobster traps. It's small things and small steps, and I'm just excited to be part of this.
Great. And Dan, you've been making us feel like underachievers all day. But
I'm not trying to.
But go ahead.
So we talk about the circular economy. Obviously, you've seen our numbers. We're probably 77% of the way there in terms of diversion from landfills. But the opportunities are still there to do better. Some things we're doing right now is we have a pilot program going on right now for advanced metals recovery, which is recovering those small fractions of metal that remain in the ash stream under 5/8 of an inch. Those can be marketed. A lot of that's precious metals, so that's keeping that out of the landfill. And we're also we've launched an initiative to recycle aggregate recovered from ash into asphalt and concrete production. I think we've talked about that before. We're trying to advance that even further, and we thank obviously Dr. Tim Townsend and his group at the University of Florida for helping us get as far as we are. But that helps to preserve resources in terms of virgin aggregates and also replaces some recycled aggregate as well, so that's important. Another opportunity for recovering resources is in carbon capture. The flue gas from the waste energy plant, obviously there's technology out there that enables you to recover that carbon into industrial grade CO2, for example, to make that reusable by industry. That's another step in the process.
Is that from at the landfill or the
Well,
WTE?
it's potentially at the plant. We will be looking at it. If we look at REF 3, we will replacing our initial waste energy plant. We'll be looking at it on there as well. The technology is advancing. But, you know, honestly, the only way to get farther, I think, is on the production side. It's on the manufacturing and production. It's more thoughtful production of the things that we buy every day. We're a disposal society. We can't keep getting rid of something we bought 3 weeks ago because we don't want it anymore and putting it in a landfill and storing it there for the next 1,000 years. That doesn't make any sense. But a lot of what's being produced, for example, there's other in terms of the durability and reliability of the things we buy. Unfortunately, it appears that a lot of the things we buy now don't last as long as they used to. And anyone who's bought one of those flat panel TVs knows you may get 3 years out of it, 4 years out of it, whatever, but those old CRTs, you could have them for 20 years or 30 years and they'd still work. So there are some areas where we've, I think, fallen down on the manufacturing side and not considered the durability and the longevity of the things that we buy. There's going to have to be changes on the consumer front in order to get, if you ever want to get to quote unquote zero landfill, there's going to have to be changes on the consumer side. And that means there's going to have to be changes on the way we manufacture the things that we buy every day, whether it's a toaster or a tool or a shirt or anything else. So that's my 2 cents.
Okay. On a little bit on that same note, you've got the South Florida Regional Planning Council and you've got the Treasure Coast. You've got a lot of the board members here. And what the two groups have done together over the last few years has brought legislation to Tallahassee and tried to pass it. You have over a third of the population between these two councils. So anything that's brought there has some weight to it. I want to give you all the opportunity here to say what we should be taking to our legislators. And a lot of things have already been mentioned with regard to some legislation, whether, the amount of content, recycled content that has to go into stuff that's manufactured, the stuff about batteries. Cheryl, you mentioned solar panels, those kind of things. What would you like us to carry to our legislators through these regional planning councils? Because I know normally you're not asked this, and you're not given this voice. I want to give you this voice for this. Sure, let's start with Dan. Don't worry him much. He's already got that.
All right. So what I wanted to throw out there is I think we heard it from DEP. Residential is a great program, and I think there are a lot of efforts there. I feel commercial recycling has to be the next big push.
Are you saying mandated?
I think we need mandatory ordinance for commercial recycling is where the push is. We talk about recycling at home, but there's a good portion of the day where we're sleeping, but where the good portion of the day we're at work, right? So I feel like we need to get commercial at our offices, at our businesses. I know Indian River County, in terms of we're trying to lead by example. So we basically provide and sort of mandate, if you will, ourselves. So there's recycling at all government buildings, at all parks. You saw our locked recycling cart. We fund that. We have the hauler going up and picking up recycling at all our government facilities. I think we need to get the private businesses to do the same. And if we had an ordinance sort of through the 7-county region to require it, they can choose. It can still be an open market. They can choose whatever hauler they want to use. But it's like, no, you need to help get this stuff out of the landfill, right? And I think that if we have that voice and that message to make that happen, I think that it'd be a great thing for all of us.
Others?
No,
You want to comment on that? Okay.
I would agree completely. We recently, probably a year and a half ago, once we rolled out our new waste management contract, we went from bins actually in October 21, we went to from bins to carts. It's been very effective for us. We also got the county administrator on board to put carts at the dumpster locations at all of our county facilities, county offices, and we also put large bins on each floor, a couple on each floor, and we've got custodian on each floor to make sure that that's getting used, and we're tracking that. As far as commercial, I previously worked at City of Stewart in Public Works. We provided our own garbage collection service and recycling collection. We tried to get the businesses, restaurants downtown, and worked our way out to recycle. It was a real challenge. We ended up with a lot of contamination, a lot of broken glass, and a lot of the restaurants were small mom-and-pop restaurants. There just wasn't room. They actually had community dumpsters for their garbage along some of the streets downtown, and we just didn't have the room to have receptacles for the single stream.
Yeah, sure.
So you said in our conversation, we was talking about solar panels.
Right.
And so in Monroe County, of course, we're limited on space, and everything that we have there is trucked out of the Keys. But for solar panels, they've been in use like really big, for the last 10 years maybe, there's been a big push for solar panels. So, reports will tell us that a solar panel will last between 10, 15, 20 years. We've got to start thinking now what we're going to do when people start pulling them off their homes, when a storm comes through, when a business does a whole entire parking lot and they've got solar panels running their building. I think this is something that our legislature is going to have to look at and help assist with coming up with a solution. And
Gasify.
Something that I was thinking about is, solar panels save our energy companies, and there's a rebate that comes back to the homeowner or the business. Maybe we need to look at a certain percentage of what comes back and that's being saved to go into the initiative to what are we going to do with these and how are we going to get rid of them. So we're not in 20 years or 25 years saying we've got all these solar panels and now it's like, what do we do with them? I think we have to start thinking about it now. We can't wait 20 years.
Will Monroe does Monroe take their stuff to Reuters now?
We do.
So it'll be interesting with their new plant, what can happen there.
I don't know if Dawn is still here or not.
Yeah.
But, okay. Maybe it's okay.
We'll ask her later. Okay. Any other thoughts for legislation? Because this is a good opportunity to try to, because we're trying to figure out, I know Tuesday for Broward County, we're talking with legislatures what to bring up. So we're wanting to hear now. Yeah.
Well, I think that recycling is an initiative that has to have everybody involved. It's just not residential. Like you said, we have to have commercial. And actually, Miami-Dade County does have legislation where our commercial establishments have to have recycling now. The issue is that some of these commercial folks have the same contamination problems that the residential have as well. So for us, it's not creating, we already have the legislation in place. Again, it's getting folks to recycle right. One of the things I didn't mention, like even in the residential recycling, folks put everything and their brother in there except for body parts, I think, sometimes, You see their kids, the plastic electric cars, the hoses from the garden, all kinds of stuff. So for us, it's not getting legislation for commercial because we have it. It's getting people to recycle right.
How does Miami-Dade where do they get their education materials from? Because we heard today from some really good people that were making some really good stuff. And I didn't know, like from the EPA is, you're still here. I'm trying to, what? Yeah, DEP. And one thing I didn't know if that is that free to everybody? Yes. Oh, that's good to know.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so, I mean, that was one of the things
We'll definitely take free stuff. We love free.
Yeah, that's what I thought I'd ask that, yeah.
But that being said, we actually have a public information office division. We actually are in the process. The person that was leading that initiative retired early this year, so we're in the process of hiring someone new. And once that person is on board, which would be very soon, we've been working with the mayor's communication folks, and we are looking to revamp our marketing strategies. We want to be able to market the fact that you shouldn't put the plastic bags. Although when I heard Dawn say that, oh, pretty soon we might be able to take those plastic bags, I want to do a cartwheel, but I don't even want to hurt myself. But I was excited about that, really excited about that. But in the meantime, we are going to be putting forth more initiatives. You know, in the past, we looked a lot at doing mail-outs and doing the traditional stuff of outreach to folks. But, you know, the reality is a lot of people don't, I know, I'm sorry, I used to be a librarian, but they don't read. And I love to read. I myself love to read, but a lot of folks don't read. So what we're looking at is, hey, let's use this social media. Let's try to maximize on what people are using to get the message out. Also, one of the things, listen, kids are our future. Let's get with the kids and educate them so they grow up thinking recycling, recycling, recycling. And guess what? Those kids are going to go home and they'll tell them, Mom, no, you can't put that in the garbage. That has to be recycled. They will teach the parents too. So we're looking at possibly putting together some kind of curriculum and partnering with the schools to be able to go out and actually teach the children. We do that now on career days and stuff like that, but I'm talking about something more consistent where we're out there and we're actually sending the message out. I was so happy earlier this week when one of my staff persons actually texted me a little video where we actually had followed one of our enforcement officers. Earlier this year, the commissioners passed this legislation where it gave us a little more teeth. The enforcement officer now is actually able to open up the recycling bin and examine it for contaminants. And if there are contaminants there, we put a yellow sticker on it, basically letting the contractor know, don't pick up this cart, it has contaminants, right? And we also leave literature for the residents saying, hey, your cart has contaminants, these are the things that are supposed to be in there, please remove them, or your cart will not be serviced. And right now, we're doing education. We're giving, a year of, tagging them and giving the information. But starting next year, we're getting really serious. And after the third time of being tagged, we're actually going to charge a fee to service that cart that's contaminated. So, we're really looking at some good stuff. And again, revamping our marketing strategies, finding out what things we could be doing better to making sure. Our composition study says we're doing better, so we've been doing some things right. But guess what? We can do even more things, and we're really excited about seeing that happen in the future.
Has anybody else done anything with enforcement, on the enforcement issue in recycling?
That's no fun.
Yeah, no. No, even flow control stuff. I mean, that's much.
Well, we also similarly have a tag system. So if our residents are contaminating, well, everyone contaminates really, but if we see that it's really a cart that has a lot of contamination, then it might be our staff or it might be the hauler, the vendor that would go out and inspect that cart, and they would leave a tag behind and identifying exactly what the problem is, those contaminants. Is the reason why the recycling cart wouldn't be picked up in advance of service. And we definitely want those people, the residents that don't get serviced, to call us. That gives us an opportunity to be able to educate them on why that cart was left behind, what they did wrong. And, it's a teachable moment for us. But we also have that written in our contract as well, so that we have that responsibility for the hauler to do in addition to staff.
Okay.
I would echo the same thing. Sue Flack goes out with Jill, our other recycling coordinator, to do audits. WM also assists with that as well. And we've gone a step further where after a couple times, we'll actually take the recycling cart away. And I know it defeats the whole purpose of wanting to get recycling going, but if that resident is going to refuse to participate correctly, they don't deserve to have a recycling cart. And so we just go ahead and take it away.
Is that a county policy?
Yeah, I mean, we've gone to code enforcement, we've gone to our board, and we've gotten support that if we can't get them to correctly do the right thing. And unfortunately for us right now, we're still a subscription-based county or unincorporated areas, so a lot of folks, rental properties, in fact, are using that recycling cart for garbage service.
Right.
So there's no point in continuing that.
Okay. Any other thoughts on there? Go ahead, Dan.
So we have an entirely voluntary program. We have not initiated any type of enforcement action on recycling. We do have a staff of 6 individuals who work with multifamily and commercial. They go out in the field, they do waste audits for businesses, they deal with multifamily complexes, particularly if we get word that one of them is going to discontinue recycling because of issues they're having with their hauler. So we do work proactively with people to do that. I think one issue, obviously, is in new construction. Obviously, I'm pretty sure everybody does it, but in the code, in all of the county codes, it really is recommended that any new construction have space for recycling containers, because that was always an issue back in the day where a lot of older development didn't have any space for those containers. So making sure that there's space available for that, I mean, I think that's important. Echoing on what Himanshu said, there was a report that was done by the Solid Waste Association of North America maybe 2 years ago, and what he talked about is basically, I would consider a best practice, which is to kind of educate and inform and try to bring someone who's not recycling correctly in line, and if they can't, to remove the container. Because you know the markets are very stringent when it comes to what goes into those products, and you don't need entire loads, truckloads of material coming back to you and having to pay freight on it and reprocess it because of contamination in the recycling load. So recycling is important, but if someone refuses to do it correctly, then the appropriate approach is to remove the service.
Okay. I'm going to pivot here just for a second, because I'm wanting to hear if there's any appetite or possibilities of regionalization on this. Normally, I think we work pretty much in our own silos. I know for Broward County, we're thinking we're just trying to take care of our own garbage, and I think that's probably the case for every county. But I do wonder is if sometimes you wish that your county to the north or south of you had some facility that you wish they had that you could use, you know, and maybe trade off. I'll give you an example. For instance, for Broward, it's going to be very hard for us to be able to compost at all, because we have almost no land. As much as we want to do that, we're going to have to figure out some way to do that somewhere else, probably. In exchange for that, what could we offer? That's what we should be thinking. And I wonder if your counties have similar or other kind of things. I'd just like to hear where you think there may be room for regionalization. I know Miami-Dade is probably wanting to use our waste energy plant, and I'm sorry.
Go ahead and make fun of me.
I know.
Kick a sister when she's down.
You guys, it's coming. But are there things where you think there's good possibilities?
I'll just chime in real quick. I think we have regionalization with St. Lucie County. So in terms of recycling, what Martin County and Indian River are doing, sending our recycling there, I think is working out great. I love what Broward is thinking about doing. I think, I would love to see the Solid Waste Authority of the Treasure Coast or something like that, because we're a small county, our population is 160,000. So when we're looking at, Palm Beach County, the size they are, or Miami or Broward, we don't have that population to be able to build a waste energy facility. So I think if we kind of work together with our sister counties, I think that'd be a great opportunity to think about the future. I mean, looking beyond the next 50, 60, 100 years, that's where we kind of need to think, growth is coming even up to us. We're getting squeezed from the north and the south, So.
Yeah, I know your county to the north or south. Rebecca, where are you guys? But you guys have glass recycling, and I don't know. I'm not seeing that in many places. So I wonder if the other counties ever bring their glass to you. Because that's a good example.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, if it's going in their curbside carts and they're bringing it to us, then we're getting
Okay.
But, I don't know, we don't really actively request people put glass in their recycling carts,
Right.
because we're not selling it, we're using it for road base. So, I mean, and there's a point where we're gonna have too much, so I wouldn't request it.
Oh, okay. Dan?
Sure. For us, we have a great recycling facility,
Right.
but there are times when your facility's got to be down for one
Right.
reason or another.
Right.
And having backup recycling capacity in the region could be helpful to ship to. In the past, we've taken material from Martin and St. Lucie counties on a short-term basis. It'd be nice to be able to have reciprocal abilities to do that in the event that we're replacing a processing line or something like that, and we need to divert certain materials somewhere. That's helpful. One thing we talked about in the planning stages when we were talking about this meeting, and you alluded to it, is the lack of suitable land for solid waste and recycling infrastructure.
Right.
Palm Beach County, we have a dearth of industrial property to put things on. We ran into this with an equestrian race processing facility that we were trying to get started on a piece of property. There was pretty much nowhere to put it other than on an old landfill site that we own. Having proper industrial property suitably zoned for recycling facilities, recycling operations, construction demolition debris recycling, composting, and those sorts of things is a challenge, particularly in a region as densely populated as South Florida is. So,
Yeah.
I think that's a challenge that I think is planning councils that everyone's going to have to address at some point in time, because the NIMBYism is alive and well everywhere, and
Yeah.
it's tough to cite these critical, and this is critical infrastructure. I
Right.
mean, we don't talk about it, but solid waste is public health, safety, and welfare principally. That's what it's about.
Right.
Our job is to protect the environment, is to protect the public health by managing solid waste properly. And so there has to be a place for this infrastructure to exist, or else we're going to be consistently loading things up into trucks and shipping them long distances to other places where these facilities can be located.
Right.
And that's not good either.
With that, I think we're about to run out of time, but before we do that, I do want to make sure we have some time for Q&A. But I do think that events like this open the doors for thinking about regionalization and how we can help each other out. Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much. I'm Monica Mayotte. I am the deputy mayor of the city of Boca Raton, and everybody knows me as the environmental city council member. I want to go back to the suggestion on what legislation we should look at for the state legislature this coming session. And everybody, all of our panelists today, a lot of our panelists talk about the number one contaminant for recycling is plastic bags. Back in 2010, the
Right.
legislature requested that this analysis report be done. The retail bags report was issued in 2010, and there's been nothing done with it. No suggestions. We've actually, as a municipality, I can't regulate plastic bags.
Well, we're preempted.
Correct.
So
We are.
your suggestion, I think what you're saying is that we try to get over that preemption.
Correct. Allow us, from the municipal levels, to tell our local